that we'll be learning. Then apart from this, we'll be learning how does the transfer of heat take place with the help of conduction, convection, and the radiation. About these three things we'll be learning. And then we'll be learning about the sea breeze and the land breeze in the whole chapter. So these are the few things we'll be discussing in this chapter. Starting with the definition of heat. What do you think, Varshit, is heat?
Ma'am, heat is a form of energy
Okay.
which passes from hot object to cold objects.
Okay, fine. All right. So, all I can say that this is also correct, but in a better way, heat is a form of energy which flows from a body, at a higher temperature to the, what kind of temperature it will be moving?
Lower temperature.
Lower temperature, right? So what you said was the same thing, but you have said like from the hot object to the cold object, right? So when we talk about the hot object and the cold object, object means it can be the pen, it can be the pencil, right? So we cannot use the word here object. We have to use the word body. When we talk about the body, we talk about the living beings. All right. So heat is a form of energy which flows from a body. From a body means from a particular living organism, or it can be in the form of machines also, at a higher temperature to a lower temperature. So temperature will be the high temperature, then it goes to the lower temperature. Then the second point, heat can increase or decrease the temperature. So depending upon the amount of heat, what can happen? The temperature can be increased or the temperature can be decreased. So if heat is more, then temperature will be more. If heat is less, the temperature will also be less. So heat can increase or decrease the temperature. And the third point is the direct flow of heat between two bodies is determined by their temperature. So how much the temperature is, like for example, if I talk about the cat, if I talk about the humans, now in the body of the cat and in the body of the humans, the temperature will be different. So how we can calculate the heat in them? By knowing the temperature. So if temperature of a human is high, then we can say they have the high amount of heat produced. If the temperature of a cat is more, then we can say that the heat produced by them is more. So the direct flow of heat between the two bodies can be determined by the temperature. So temperature is responsible for it. Now the next topic is temperature. So we are saying temperature, but what is temperature? Temperature is a physical quantity. It is a physical quantity that measures the degree of hotness or coldness of a body. Degree of hotness or coldness of a body. Now what happened when we talk about the temperature? With the help of the temperature, what we'll be doing, we'll be finding that the particular body is having the cold temperature or is having the hot temperature. Now talking about the polar bear will have the high temperature or low temperature? Polar bears, penguins, where do they live?
Antarctica.
Cold
India.
regions.
in the cold region. So what kind of temperature they will have? They will have the hot temperature of the body or the cold temperature?
Hot temperature.
They will have the hot temperature.
Yes, ma'am, because of the fur.
So that fur is the advantage for them. So the fur is acting like the adaptation for them, right? But inside the body, what do they have? They have the cold temperature. Now, so as to maintain the temperature, what do they have? They have the fur. So with the help of the fur, what happens? They will be forming a layer where they will be getting the heat into the body. So these kind of animals have a different adaptation. Either they have a layer of the big thick skin with them, or either they have the layer of the fur with them. So some or the other adaptation will be there so as to maintain their body temperature. So temperature is a physical quantity that measures the degree of hotness or coldness of a body. Nowadays, you might have seen like there is a thermo flask coming. A flask will be there, and on the top of the lid of that flask, you will be able to see the temperature, what is there inside the bottle, right? Have you seen those bottles? No. Anubhav, turn on your video. Yashwant, turn on your video. You have not seen those bottles. Let me see if I can
Ma'am,
show
I'm
you
trying to
those.
join with another device. No, sir.
Okay. I'll show you. I'll show you. Okay. I'll share my screen. I'll show you that. So these are the thermo flask bottles. Now, what happens? You can see on the top of that lid what is the temperature is being shown there. So, suppose for example, I have added the water which is like very hot. As soon as I add that the water into it and cover the lid, what happened? On the top of the lid, the temperature starts coming. So, if since I said it is hot, the temperature will be somewhere 35, 32. And after some time, what I did, I changed that water and I have converted that into the cold water. So according to the temperature will change into the 24, 16, 17 like this. So these are the kind of the bottles where now you are able to identify the temperature what is present inside the bottle. So inside the bottle, this temperature will be there. So you can change the like when how you will be knowing the temperature, but just touching the lid of that display. So you can see on the top a lid the display is there. On that display, you need to touch. As you touch them, the temperature you will be able to see. So that is how the temperature we identify in the water bottles. Like earlier, it was not coming, but nowadays these bottles are very popular. So temperature is a physical quantity that measures the degree of hotness or coldness of a body. Now, how do we measure measurement of temperature? How can we measure the temperature? Is there anything to measure the temperature?
Thermometers.
Right, thermometer. So, the first thing, two things are there for the measurement of temperature. The first thing is thermometry. Have you ever heard this word, thermometry? Thermometry is basically the process of measuring temperature. So, the process to measure the temperature is called as thermometry. Now, how do we measure this temperature? With a thermometer. The second is thermometer. Thermometer is measured by a device Not temperature is measured by a device which is called as thermometer. So these are the two kind of measurement for the temperature. The first one is thermometry. So the process of measuring temperature is called as thermometry. Thermometer, it is a device used to measure the temperature. So that is the thermometer. Now, is there any difference between the heat and temperature? Are they same or are they different?
And different.
How are they different? How you can say that heat is different and the temperature is different? So both are measuring the degree of hotness and the coldness, right, of a body or the object. So okay, I'll show you a video. It will be clarifying that whether the heat and the temperature are same or are they different. So
Secret school hack nobody knows about. It's called Nerd AI. You can literally ask.
So here in this video, you will be getting to know that heat and temperature are they same or are they different, and how they are different or how they are same.
Hello and welcome to Science for Juniors. I am Scientist Radhe Krishna, or SRK as I'm famously called, and this is my assistant Bin. We are doing this experiment to help. Ouch! Burnt myself.
Professor, let me get you some ice. It will cool down your skin.
Oh, Binny, the ice is not going to cool my skin. Instead, it's my skin that'll melt the ice with its heat.
But Professor...
You see, it's my hand that will give out heat to cool itself. Binny, you, like many of my students, need to understand the concept of heat and temperature
So generally,
well.
what do
You
we
need
think?
to
We think like if any hot things come on our hand, like by mistakenly we have poured the hot milk or hot tea, then as soon as we pour, we will be trying to put some hot, the cold thing, like maybe ice we will try to put on that. But what happened when you put all the ice on it, the effect of that heat will not reduce, it get increases because our bodies automatically start releasing that coldness.
understand the difference between these two quantities. So let's enter the virtual world. Heat and temperature. In this module, you will learn about the concept of heat and temperature. If you touch a cup of tea, it feels hot. If you touch ice cubes, we feel cold. It is very important to quantify and measure the difference in warmth of an object. This need introduces us to the concept of temperature. Temperature is defined as the degree of hotness and coldness of an object. Temperature is measured by an instrument called a thermometer. The SI unit of temperature is Kelvin. 273.15 K is equal to 0 degrees Celsius. Let's now learn to calibrate a thermometer. For this, first place the thermometer in ice.
So now if we want to calculate the temperature of an ice, what we will be doing, we will be, with the help of a stand, we will be holding the thermometer in a straight position so that the energy which is present in the ice will start releasing and it will come into the thermometer. So as soon as it comes to the thermometer, with the help of the mercury which is present in the thermometer, it starts depicting the temperature of the ice.
And mark the melting point of ice, that is 0 degrees Celsius, as lower fixed point of the thermometer. Next, place the thermometer in boiling water. such that it does not touch the boiling water that shows the temperature of the steam. The boiling point of water, that is 100 degrees Celsius, is marked as the upper fixed point. The separation between these two fixed points is divided into 100 equal divisions, each
So in the melting point, it is 0 degree, the lowest point, and in the boiling point, the highest is the 100 degree.
representing a temperature difference of 1 degree Celsius. When I was a little boy and fell sick, I was fascinated by these things my mother.
What is the temperature, normal temperature of a human body?
37 degrees Celsius.
How much?
37 degrees Celsius.
37 degrees Celsius for normal temperature I'm talking about. Of a human body. Like, suppose we are suffering from a fever, right? So now how much temperature will be getting during a fever condition?
Is it like 108 degrees?
In Fahrenheit, how much, Anubha? If we talk about in the Fahrenheit. You are telling in the Celsius, right? 37 degrees Celsius. But what about the Fahrenheit? Basically, we calculate in the Fahrenheit only.
98.7.
Who answered this?
Ma'am, Varshit.
Okay, correct. Like 98.6 basically Fahrenheit. Anubhav is also correct, 37 degrees Celsius, but basically we calculate in the Fahrenheit. So it is 98.6. Now, when we are suffering from a fever, what happened? This 98.6 temperature goes to the 100 also, 101 also. So 101 point something, 101.3, 101.4, 101.5. So like this, 102 then. So many subunits of divisions are there. And because of that temperature, rise in the temperature, we say that the person is suffering from the fever. So 98.6 Fahrenheit is basically the temperature of the body. And if we say in the Celsius, then it is 37 degree Celsius.
Professor, the thermometer.
Oh, of course. You know that energy only gets transferred from one body to another and never gets lost. So it is with heat energy. When you have fever, the heat energy from your mouth flows to the mercury in this thermometer.
See, now what happens? Temperature is like basically when you're calculating the hot and the coldness of an object. But when we talk about the heat always travels from one body to the other body. And because of that traveling only, we will be able to find out the temperature. So now if in my body, heat does not travel, he does not move to the other body, then what happened? The thermometer will not be able to identify whether that my body is hot or cold, right? Since the movement is there, since the heat energy move from one body to the other body. Now here two bodies are there. One body is my body and the second body is the body of the thermometer. So what happened from my body, that heat energy get transferred to the body of the thermometer, and that is the reason that thermometer is able to tell the temperature of my body. So this happens in the case of the heat. So in the case of the heat, the energy lost will not be there. Instead of the loss, they will be traveling from one body to the other body. So as soon as like thermometer is being kept inside, like somewhere at my place, so what happened? Whatever the heat is there in my body, it starts moving to that thermometer, and the level of the thermometer will decide the temperature,
which expands from the heat and registers the temperature.
So that means, Professor, that temperature difference between two bodies also shows the direction of energy flow, isn't it?
That is a brilliant observation, Binny. On that note, we get ready to enter the virtual world again. Temperature is often thought to be the same as heat. But this is not true. Though they are related, but there is a difference between them. To understand the difference, consider a glass and a large vessel, both completely filled with hot water at the same temperature. Though the water in the glass and the vessel are at the same temperature, the vessel has more heat as it has more mass. Heat, thus, is the total amount of energy in the substance, whereas temperature is the average energy of the molecular motion in.
Now, there is a difference between heat and temperature. In the case of the heat, what happens? The total energy of a substance will be calculated. So, whatever the energy is there, the total amount of it. But in the case of temperature, it is the average. Average, like in for example, like very simple example, I'll give you. You might have seen in the news about the daily weather, right? Today's weather is this 25 degrees Celsius, 24 degrees Celsius. So, do you think so? They are talking only about a particular hour or only that particular time for a day?
No, ma'am.
No, right? For the whole day, they are calculating. Like at 1 o'clock, temperature was 25. Then 2 o'clock, the temperature was 24. Then 3 o'clock, temperature was so. Then 4 o'clock, temperature was so. So, like this, they are calculating the average of all the different temperature for a day. And that is what the temperature is. So, that is why the temperature is the measure of the average energy of the molecular motion of an object or any substance. So, whatever the temperature, whatever the average is there, that will be the temperature for that. Same way in our body also, like you might have seen, if we are suffering from fever, for few duration of few hours, that fever will be there because what is happening? The transfer of the heat is happening, and that is why the thermometer is showing that. So, heat is a total amount of energy, whereas the temperature is the average energy of the molecular motion.
A substance. Consider two glass containers filled with water. One container is at 70 degrees Celsius and the other at 20 degrees Celsius. The molecules in the water at 70 degrees Celsius will vibrate more vigorously than those in the water at 20 degrees Celsius. Why do you think this is so? The molecules in the water at 70 degrees Celsius vibrate more vigorously because the average energy due to the motion of molecules in hot water.
So, if we are taking any two containers, we are putting the water of the same amount, and then in one we are putting the temperature of thermometer with the 70 degree and the other 20 degree. Now, automatically it is known to us, we know very well that if less temperature will be there, then the molecules will not be able to move fast. But when we increase the temperature, the amount of energy flow in them will be increased. And that is why where the temperature is 70 degrees Celsius, the molecules will be vibrating more vigorously due to the motion of the molecules in the hot water rather than the cold water.
Will be more than that in cold water.
Yeah, you might have felt like while making tea also, this thing. When you make the tea, you might have noticed like when it comes to the boiling point, when it starts boiling, the molecules of that tea moves like in the center, they will be bubbling, they will be coming up, going down, coming up. When we increase the flame, again they come up, then again they go down. Why it is happening? It is happening because of the hotness of that particular energy. But at the same time, when tea gets cold, does the molecules of that tea move up and down?
No, ma'am.
No, right? So that is the difference.
Back from the virtual world and into the lab with Binny and me. Oh, Binny, don't touch that. You will get burnt.
Oh, that didn't look that hot.
Ah, Binny, objects at about 54 to 55 degrees centigrade or 130 degrees Fahrenheit are usually warm enough to cause you pain. So please be careful touching things unless you are sure they are near to your body temperature of about 36 degrees centigrade or 98 degrees Fahrenheit. Heat flows when there is difference in temperatures of bodies in contact with each other.
So generally, whenever the difference is there in the two bodies, the heat starts flowing. So, like in my hand, if I have something, my body is hot. Now I am taking something in my hand. Like for example, if I am taking mobile in my hand. So what happened from my hand, the heat will get transferred to that mobile, and that's the result. Like the mobile also become hot. Or you can do it in the opposite way. For example, I had kept the mobile for charging. Now what happens during the charging? For example, it was like for 5 hours it was charging continuously. Because of that, the heat was produced in that mobile. Now I have removed the charger and I took the mobile in my hand. Now what happened? The hotness of that mobile phone will come into my hand. So that is how the transfer of heat takes place, or transfer of energy takes place between the two object or two body in the case of the heat.
Difference in temperature? Professor?
Yes, Binny. You see, heat is energy in motion. Heat is energy in transit. Heat cannot be said to exist unless there is one system in contact with another system of differing temperature. Let's understand it better. You will now learn how heat and temperature are related. Consider water in a beaker at room temperature. If you heat the beaker, you can easily make out that there is a rise in the temperature of the water. This indicates that as heat increases, temperature also increases. All you can say is that the average energy due to the motion of the molecules also increases.
So heat increases, temperature increases, the molecules will be moving faster, and because of this, the average energy also increases.
When two bodies at different temperature are brought in contact with each other, heat flows from the body of higher temperature to the one at lower temperature. The flow of heat continues until both the bodies attain the same temperature. At this stage, the two bodies are said to be in thermal equilibrium.
So equilibrium is a condition where both the bodies will have the same temperature. Earlier, what happened? One of the cube had the high temperature, the second one had the low temperature. But when both the cubes they came in contact with each other, the higher temperature started giving the heat to the lower temperature one. And as a result, a point has come where both the bodies got the same temperature. And when they get the same temperature, that kind of condition is called as a equilibrium.
Consider two beakers.
Okay, before moving ahead, I'll just the next thing is the temperature scale. Temperature scale. So temperature scale is basically for measuring the temperature. So different scales are there. So temperature is, what are the three different scales for it? What are the three different temperature scales?
Degree Celsius,
Yeah.
Fahrenheit, Kelvin.
Yes. Correct. So these are the three different scales for measuring the temperature, and that's the reason they are called as temperature scale. Now there are three different scales. Three scales of temperature are used to measure temperature. So if we want to measure the temperature, we can use the three different scales. And these are the Celsius, then Fahrenheit, then the Kelvin. So Kelvin is K, Celsius is degree C, and then Fahrenheit is degree F. So Celsius, Fahrenheit, and the Kelvin. These are the different three scales on which we can measure the temperature. Now, generally, what do we do? To measure temperature, generally, we use the Celsius and the Fahrenheit scale. So, to measure temperature, Generally, Celsius and Fahrenheit scale are used. Now, in a scale of temperature, in a scale of like thermometer, in a scale of temperature, what happened? They have two fixed temperature, which are called as the fixed point. So they have two fixed point. Just now, we have seen in the video also the lower point and the upper point. So these 2 points are called as a fixed point. So fixed point, a scale of temperature is constructed on the basis of two fixed temperature. So two fixed temperature will be there. One is the lower fixed temperature and the upper one is the upper fixed temperature. And these two fixed temperature are called as the fixed point. So there are two fixed point, the lower fixed point and then the upper fixed point. Talking about the lower fixed point of the Celsius and Fahrenheit. So when we talk about the lower point of the Celsius and Fahrenheit scale, then it is known as the ice point. So the lower point of the Celsius and the Fahrenheit scales, they are called as the ice point. And it is the temperature at which the ice melts. So that temperature at which ice melts. So that temperature is called as the ice point. So the temperature at which the ice melt, they are called as the ice point. Whereas second one is the upper fixed point of the Celsius and Fahrenheit scale. And this is called as, one second, Fahrenheit scales, and this is called as the steam point. So lower point are called as the ice point and the upper point are called as a steam point, and it can be given on the value of, it has a value of 100 degree on the Celsius scale. And the steam point for the Fahrenheit scale is the 212 degree Celsius Fahrenheit for the Fahrenheit scale. So these are very important for the entrance exam and all. So fixed point is a kind of point where two temperature are fixed. 2 points are there for it, lower fixed point and the upper fixed point. For the lower fixed point, they will have the ice point where the ice melts. And in the upper point, they have the steam point. For the Celsius, it is 100 degree in the value, and whereas for the Fahrenheit, it is 212 degree in the value. So these are the fixed, two different fixed points, upper fixed point and the lower fixed point. Clear, children?
Yes, ma'am.